Life aboard a $13 billion Nimitz-class aircraft carrier is unlike anything else on this planet. It's a floating city where 5,000 sailors work and live for 6 to 9 months at a time in the middle of the ocean, hundreds of miles from any coastline. These sailors share just 1,100 feet of steel deck for everything they need to survive while conducting combat operations 24 hours a day. And it's quite impressive how the Navy has managed to recreate an entire American town on the water. How they've built complete shopping districts, barbershops, post offices, and even Starbucks-style coffee shops to help these sailors maintain some sense of normalcy while serving in one of the most intense military environments imaginable. The scale of retail operations. But here's what most people don't realize. These aren't just simple supply closets or military exchanges. We're talking about a comprehensive commercial district spanning multiple decks with over 30 different retail and service locations, generating millions of dollars in annual revenue. The ship's store alone processes more than 15,000 transactions per week. To put it into perspective, this floating shopping mall serves more customers daily than many small-town commercial districts back in the United States, except every single customer lives within 1,000 feet of the checkout counter and can't leave for months at a time. Sleeping quarters. Before we explore this hidden commercial empire, let's understand where these 5,000 shoppers actually live. The sleeping quarters aboard a carrier are nothing like civilian accommodations. Most enlisted sailors sleep in berthing compartments that pack 60 to 180 people into spaces roughly the size of a high school classroom. Each sailor gets a coffin rack, a sleeping space measuring just 6 feet long, 2.5 feet wide, and about 18 inches of vertical clearance. That's smaller than most dog kennels. These bunks are stacked 3 high, and sailors store everything they own for 6 months in a small locker underneath or a tiny personal drawer. We're talking about uniforms, civilian clothes, toiletries, photos, electronics, and any personal items all fitting into a space about the size of 2 shoe boxes. In fact, many sailors learn to sleep on their sides permanently because there simply isn't enough room to roll over comfortably. Junior enlisted personnel often practice hot bunking on older carriers, where 3 sailors share 2 bunks across different watch rotations. When one person wakes up for their shift, another sailor immediately takes over the still warm rack. Officers and senior enlisted get slightly better accommodations. Chiefs have berthing compartments with 40 to 50 people instead of 180. Officers sleep in staterooms with 2 to 4 people sharing a space roughly the size of a walk-in closet. The captain gets the only private quarters on the ship, a bedroom, office, and living area combined. But even the captain's quarters are modest by civilian standards, maybe the size of a small apartment bedroom. This kind of proves why the ship's retail operations become so psychologically important. When you're living in a space barely big enough to lie down, having access to small luxuries and personal choice becomes worth their weight in gold. Toilets, showers, and laundry. The personal hygiene situation makes the retail services even more critical. A carrier has approximately 400 toilets and 400 showers for 5,000 people. That's 1 toilet for every 12.5 sailors. Shower time is strictly regulated to 3 to 5 minutes maximum due to water production limitations. The ship can produce about 400,000 gallons of fresh water per day through desalination, but that has to cover drinking, cooking, cooling nuclear reactors, and personal hygiene for the entire crew. Only officers and senior chiefs get what's called Hollywood showers, the privilege of taking longer showers with unlimited hot water. Everyone else follows a strict Navy shower protocol: wet down for 30 seconds, turn off the water, soap up, then rinse for 2 minutes maximum. Bathroom attendants actually monitor shower usage during water restrictions. The thing is that after working 12 to 16-hour shifts in 120-degree engine rooms or on the flight deck in full gear, these 3-minute showers become precious moments of personal relief. Laundry facilities serve those same 5,000 people with about 50 industrial washers and 50 dryers spread across the ship. Sailors coordinate laundry schedules around their watch rotations, often doing laundry at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. when machines become available. Each sailor is issued a laundry bag with their name and rack number stenciled on it. The ship's laundry workers process approximately 3,000 pounds of clothing and linens every single day. This is where the ship's store becomes essential. Sailors constantly need detergent, stain removers, and fabric fresheners because the salt air and machinery oil permeate everything. Kitchen and the food. The food aboard a modern aircraft carrier is famously excellent, and there's a good reason why. When you're asking 5,000 people to work 18-hour days in dangerous conditions far from home, food becomes the primary morale tool available. The carrier's main galley, called the crew's mess, operates 24 hours a day, serving 4 complete meals daily to accommodate rotating watch schedules. We're talking breakfast, lunch, dinner, and midnight rations for the night shift workers. The numbers behind feeding a carrier crew are staggering. The ship's supply department stocks approximately 250,000 pounds of food before each deployment, enough for 90 to 120 days at sea. This includes 18,000 pounds of fresh fruits and vegetables, 30,000 pounds of frozen vegetables, 20,000 pounds of flour, 8,000 pounds of coffee, 12,000 pounds of chicken, 15,000 pounds of beef, and 5,000 pounds of bacon. Plus, there are 2,000 dozen eggs consumed every week. The ship has 15 refrigerated spaces and 15 freezer spaces, but that's not nearly enough room. Here's where it gets creative. Food gets stored everywhere imaginable. Under sailors' bunks, in passageways, in equipment closets, even in some of the spare weapons magazines when they're empty. Fresh milk lasts about 2 weeks before the ship switches to powdered milk and boxed UHT milk that tastes noticeably different. Fresh fruits and vegetables typically run out after the first month at sea, replaced entirely by canned and frozen alternatives. Sailors joke that you can tell how long the deployment has been by what's being served. Fresh salads mean you just left port, canned fruit cocktail means you're halfway through, and creativity with Spam means you're almost home. The galley crew consists of about 100 culinary specialists who work in kitchens where the temperature regularly exceeds 110 degrees Fahrenheit. They're preparing food for 5,000 people using equipment that would make a mid-sized restaurant jealous. Industrial mixers, steam kettles holding 80 gallons, convection ovens that can cook 100 chickens simultaneously, and deep fryers processing 40 pounds of food at once. These culinary specialists attend extensive Navy training at the Joint Culinary Center of Excellence before ever stepping aboard a carrier. Moreover, carriers regularly win the Captain Edward F. Ney Memorial Award for Best Food Service in the entire Navy, making the reputation of carrier food well-deserved. Free time and recreation. With such demanding schedules and cramped living conditions, recreational facilities become crucial mental health resources. The carrier has a small fitness center with about 30 pieces of cardio equipment, free weights, and weight machines. That's one piece of equipment for every 165 sailors, meaning the gym operates 24 hours with sign-up sheets for popular equipment during peak times. The ship also has a small library with about 2,000 books and magazines, a few video game stations, and a television lounge that shows movies on a rotation approved months in advance. The hangar bay occasionally transforms into a basketball court or volleyball court during flight operations downtime, though this happens rarely given operational demands. Some sailors form bands and practice in soundproof spaces, others organize board game tournaments, and there's always a hardcore group of tabletop role-playing gamers running campaigns that last entire deployments. The thing is that most sailors work 12 to 18-hour days with only 6 hours or less for sleep, so free time becomes incredibly precious. Many sailors spend their limited downtime shopping at the ship's retail spaces simply because it feels normal. It's one of the few activities that reminds them of life back home. Communicating with families. Communication with loved ones remains one of the hardest challenges of carrier life. Unlike civilian cruise ships, aircraft carriers maintain strict emission control protocols to avoid detection. This means no Wi-Fi, no cellular service, and no personal internet access. Sailors get access to an email system that operates on a delay. Messages go into a queue and get transmitted in batches when the ship's communication systems permit, sometimes once per day, sometimes once per week, depending on operational security requirements. All emails get reviewed by junior officers for operational security violations before transmission. Sailors learn to write carefully, avoiding any mention of location, heading, recent activities, or upcoming operations. Phone calls happen even less frequently, maybe once every 2 to 3 weeks when the ship is in a position to establish a satellite connection. These calls get scheduled weeks in advance, with each sailor getting a 15-minute window. Bluetooth and wireless devices are restricted or banned in many areas because they could potentially emit signals that compromise the ship's stealth. Some sailors go 30 to 60 days without any contact with family during intense operational periods. This isolation makes the ship's retail spaces doubly important. They provide distraction and a sense of connection to normal consumer life that's otherwise completely absent. Medical and dental care. The carrier operates as a completely self-sufficient medical city with approximately 60 medical personnel, including doctors, nurses, dentists, and technicians. The ship's medical spaces include operating rooms, a 53-bed hospital ward, intensive care units, dental clinics, a pharmacy, and even a basic laboratory for blood work and diagnostics.
Requires constant vigilance.
The medical department can perform emergency surgeries, set broken bones, treat infections, and handle dental emergencies that would otherwise require a trip to a civilian hospital. Here's something surprising. The same tables used in the cruise mess for eating meals can be rapidly converted into operating tables during mass casualty situations. The Navy trains for this regularly. The medical staff stocks enough supplies and medications to operate independently for the entire deployment. This includes prescription medications for chronic conditions, over-the-counter remedies, and specialized equipment for everything from routine checkups to trauma surgery. The ship's pharmacy processes hundreds of prescriptions weekly, making it comparable to a small-town drugstore in volume. Plus, the ship has a small barbershop with 4 chairs that operates continuously, providing one of the few grooming services sailors can access during deployment. Control operations. The brain of this massive floating city is the ship's control center, actually multiple control rooms spread across several decks. Primary flight control, called Pri-Fly, manages all aircraft operations from a tower position high above the flight deck. The Combat Direction Center processes all tactical information, tracking aircraft, ships, and potential threats within a 200-mile radius. The Navigation Bridge handles the ship's movement, a surprisingly complex task considering this vessel weighs 100,000 tons and requires nearly a mile to come to a complete stop. Below deck's Central Control Station monitors the ship's 4 nuclear reactors and 8 steam turbines that generate enough power to run a city of 100,000 people. Damage Control Central coordinates all firefighting and repair efforts across the ship's 4,000 compartments. Each of these control centers operates 24 hours a day with multiple watch rotations. Officers and senior enlisted personnel spend years training to qualify for these positions. The pressure is immense. One mistake in any of these control centers could endanger the entire ship and 5,000 lives. But that's just the beginning of understanding life aboard this incredible vessel. Now that we understand the basic living conditions and operational realities, let's explore what makes these aircraft carrier retail operations so remarkable. Because what the Navy has created isn't just a simple ship store, it's a sophisticated commercial ecosystem designed to maintain morale, provide essential services, and even generate significant revenue. The scale and complexity of these retail operations would surprise most Americans who've never stepped aboard a carrier. The ship store, retail empire at sea. The ship store, officially called the Navy Exchange Retail Store or NEX, operates as the primary retail hub aboard the carrier. Located on the second deck, this isn't a small gift shop. We're talking about a retail space comparable to a medium-sized convenience store back home, roughly 2,000 to 3,000 square feet of selling floor packed with merchandise. The store stocks approximately 3,000 different products ranging from toiletries and snacks to electronics, clothing, and specialty items. Here's what makes it fascinating. The ship's store operates as a real business with profit margins, inventory management, and competitive pricing strategies. Prices are typically 15 to 25% lower than civilian retailers because the Navy exchange system operates tax-free and without profit mandates beyond covering operational costs. A sailor can buy the same toothpaste, shampoo, or candy bar they'd find at Target or Walmart, but cheaper and without ever leaving the ship. The store processes between 2,000 and 3,000 transactions daily during peak periods, with weekly sales often exceeding $150,000. The product mix gets carefully curated based on deployment location and duration. Before a deployment, the retail operations officer surveys the crew to understand what products are most desired. The most popular categories are always tobacco products, which despite declining smoking rates still account for nearly 30% of total sales. Energy drinks and coffee products represent another 15%. No surprise given the sleep deprivation culture. Snack foods, particularly chips and candy, make up about 20%. Personal care items, over-the-counter medications, and electronics fill out the remainder. But here's the creative part. The store adapts its inventory throughout the deployment based on what's selling and what's sitting on shelves. Every 2 to 3 weeks, the ship receives a replenishment at sea from a supply ship that transfers cargo while both vessels are moving. The ship's store manager submits orders for fast-moving items while returning slow sellers. This dynamic inventory management happens in real time, making the ship's store more responsive than many landlocked retail operations. Plus, the store runs regular promotions and sales to move excess inventory before it expires or becomes obsolete. The labor model is particularly interesting. The ship's store employs about 15 sailors full-time in retail operations, cashiers, stock clerks, inventory managers, and a store manager. These aren't random assignments. Sailors request this duty because it's considered one of the better jobs aboard ship. Working retail means you're indoors, air-conditioned, not exposed to weather or flight deck dangers, and you develop marketable civilian skills in customer service and retail management. In fact, many sailors who work ship store operations transition into civilian retail management positions after their military service ends, making this duty valuable for career development. Specialized retail services and shops. Beyond the main ship store, carriers host numerous specialized retail and service locations that create a genuine shopping district atmosphere. The barbershop operates continuously with 4 licensed barbers providing regulation military haircuts. These aren't just basic buzz cuts. The barbers are trained in various clipper techniques, fade styles, and maintain strict standards because proper grooming is mandatory for all personnel. The shop processes approximately 200 haircuts daily, charging just $5 per cut compared to $20 to $30 in civilian barbershops. The ship has a full-service post office staffed by Navy postal clerks who process incoming and outgoing mail for the entire crew. This isn't ceremonial. It's a real United States Postal Service facility that handles thousands of pieces of mail weekly. Sailors can mail letters, packages, and even purchase stamps and money orders. The postal operation becomes particularly busy around holidays when families send care packages and sailor ship gifts home. Moreover, the post office serves as the official address of record for all 5,000 personnel, making it a critical link to the outside world. Many modern carriers now feature what sailors call the carrier coffee shop, essentially a Navy-operated Starbucks equivalent. This isn't officially branded Starbucks, but it serves espresso drinks, specialty coffees, teas, and pastries in an environment designed to feel like a civilian coffee shop. Small tables, music playing, comfortable seating, all deliberately designed to create a relaxation space that feels distinct from the military environment. A cappuccino costs about $3, significantly cheaper than civilian coffee shops, and the location sees constant traffic from sailors seeking a quiet space and familiar beverage during their limited free time. The carrier also operates a small electronics shop selling items like headphones, chargers, portable gaming devices, e-readers, and occasionally even smartphones and laptops. Given the restrictions on electronic emissions, not all devices are approved for use, so the electronics shop only stocks items that comply with ship security protocols. Sailors can't use wireless devices freely, but they can use wired headphones, handheld gaming systems, and e-readers loaded with content before deployment. The shop also provides basic repair services for electronics, replacing phone screens or laptop batteries, services that would be impossible to access otherwise during a 6-month deployment. Here's something most people don't know. Many carriers have small uniform shops where sailors can purchase replacement uniforms, insignia, name tags, and military accessories. This becomes essential because uniforms wear out quickly in the harsh environment. Salt air corrodes metal insignia, flight deck operations tear fabric, and machinery oil stains everything permanently. Sailors might go through 3 to 4 complete uniform sets during a single deployment. The uniform shop stocks all regulation items at cost, ensuring sailors can maintain proper military appearance without financial hardship. Plus, the shop employs a tailor who can make adjustments, sew on patches and insignia, and perform repairs, making this a full-service military outfitter. Revenue operations and economic impact. The financial operations of these retail services are more sophisticated than most people imagine. The Navy exchange system operates on what's called a non-appropriated fund basis, meaning these retail operations don't receive direct taxpayer funding. Instead, they must generate enough revenue through sales to cover all operational costs, including inventory, salaries, facility maintenance, and shipping expenses. Any profits beyond operational costs get reinvested into morale and recreation programs for sailors. A single carrier's retail operations can generate between $8 million and $12 million in annual revenue depending on deployment schedule and crew size. To put it into perspective, that's comparable to a small but successful shopping center in a suburban American town. The ship's store alone typically accounts for 60 to 70% of total retail revenue. Specialty shops like the barbershop, coffee shop, and uniform shop generate the remaining 30 to 40%. But since everything operates on thin profit margins, typically just 5 to 10% after costs, the system requires enormous transaction volume to remain viable. The pricing strategy reveals careful economic planning. Staple items like toiletries, basic clothing, and essential supplies are priced at cost or minimal markup to ensure affordability for junior enlisted sailors who might earn just $2,000 to $3,000 monthly. Discretionary items like electronics, specialty foods, and luxury goods carry higher markups of 20 to 30% to generate profit from sailors with more disposable income. This tiered pricing strategy ensures essential items remain accessible while generating revenue from optional purchases. Psychological and morale impact. The psychological importance of these retail operations extends far beyond simple commerce. Military psychologists have studied the morale impact of commercial access during long deployments, and the findings reveal that access to familiar consumer experiences significantly reduces stress, depression, and disciplinary issues. Being able to choose what snacks you eat, what shampoo you use, or what coffee you drink provides a sense of personal autonomy in an environment where nearly every other aspect of life is strictly controlled. The thing is that military service, especially aboard a carrier, requires surrender of personal freedom to a degree that civilians rarely experience. You're told when to wake up, what to wear, where to go, what job to do, when to eat, and when to sleep. Your mail gets read, your emails get monitored, and your movements are tracked 24 hours a day. In this context, walking into the ship's store and choosing between Coke and Pepsi becomes a meaningful exercise of personal preference. It's a small rebellion against the total institutional control that defines military life. Conclusion. What becomes clear when examining these hidden shopping malls aboard aircraft carriers is that they represent far more than simple retail convenience. These commercial operations embody a profound understanding of human psychology and the necessity of maintaining dignity and personal choice in highly controlled environments. The Navy has learned through decades of experience that well-fed, well-supplied sailors who can exercise consumer preferences perform better, stay healthier, and remain committed to their service obligations. The broader significance extends beyond individual carriers. The retail model developed aboard these ships has influenced how the military approaches morale and welfare across all services and installations worldwide. The lessons learned from managing retail operations in the extreme constraints of a naval vessel, limited space, isolated populations, supply chain challenges, have applications in other confined environments from Antarctic research stations to space stations. The men and women who serve aboard these carriers sacrifice enormously. They leave families for months at a time, live in spaces smaller than prison cells, work dangerous jobs in extreme conditions, and accept risks that most civilians will never face. The fact that the Navy has created these comprehensive retail operations demonstrates respect for that sacrifice. It's an acknowledgement that even while asking sailors to serve in these incredibly demanding conditions, the institution wants to preserve their humanity and provide whatever normalcy is possible. And here's the most remarkable fact to close on. Over the past decade, retail operations aboard aircraft carriers have generated more than $400 million in total revenue while serving millions of sailors. That $400 million represents billions of individual transactions, each one a small moment where a sailor exercised personal choice, bought something that reminded them of home, or simply engaged in the fundamentally human act of shopping. In an environment defined by sacrifice and service, these hidden shopping malls provide something invaluable, a piece of normal life in an extraordinary place. These sailors deserve nothing less.